Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about whether we should get diagnosis, because a lot of people have this question. Even though you know that you are kind of like different from other people, and then you know that you are something, right? You actually maybe one of the neurodivergents, but there's a question on whether you want to proceed with the formal diagnosis or not, right? So what are the things that you can consider when you want to consider whether you want to get a formal diagnosis? That is from my humble opinion. So the first point that you can consider is the journey towards diagnosis may not be easy. It can be very long. It can also be very depressing sometimes. I would say like this. The reason being, especially if you are adult, you have been through your life without the diagnosis, and now you finally got the knowledge. You know that it is something there, and you would like to get the diagnosis. Most of the practitioner, especially those who are not familiar with neurodivergence, they may see you as other thing, because they thought that it is not something from childhood. It is something that you develop now, and that's the reason you want to seek for diagnosis. So they may misdiagnose you in as maybe something related to depression, or maybe something related to anxiety. So they may ask you to have the antidepressant, and they believe that after you have antidepressants, you'll feel better. And that is the solution of the problem. So they might feel like this, right? They might have lesser knowledge about this neurodivergence, and how different presentation appears for every neurodivergence and every individual, and also how the signs in childhood was not discovered, right? So they may not have the knowledge about that. So that is the reason why the journey to diagnosis may be quite depressing, because you keep on seeing psychiatrists or psychologists, but they keep on telling you that it's not what you think. It's just anxiety, it is just depression, you just have antidepressant, you will feel better. So it can be quite difficult to get a doctor who really who really have knowledge about neurodivergence, and who really know about you, right? The traits or the experience that you have because of the neurodivergence traits. So it can be quite depressing. It can be very difficult. So it may take years. You have to consider about that, right? Now, of course, when we talk about journey to diagnosis, the second thing that we need to consider is money, right? Money. This is a very realistic issue, where just now I mentioned the journey may take years. It means the money also may take years. If you opt for government, practitioner in Malaysia, we can actually get the referral from our clinic, right? The government clinic, to be referred to the psychiatric clinic at government hospital. First of all, that will take a long time. Honestly, to tell you, that will really take a long time. You will need to wait at least 2 months. Most of the time, I think it's 3 months, to get your first appointment, right? And after that appointment, right, that appointment may only last for a few minutes, right? After that, they ask you to do something, or they ask you to go and find out something, or they may ask you to look for some supporting family member that you can bring for the next visit. But the next visit is another 3 months later. So it takes time, right? Definitely it takes time. You have to wait, and that again, it takes year, because you have to wait like 3 months. It's like 1 year you only have 4 times 3 months, right? So it may take years, right? And the issue is, the most depressing to me, the most depressing moment is when you wait for 3 months, you may not necessarily get the doctor who has the knowledge about what you want to find out. So they may again diagnose you as anxiety or depression, or they may just easily take this as the first diagnosis, because they may not deny that there's a chance that you are neurodivergent, but they will say that, okay, let's go for this antidepressant first, because currently very obvious you actually have anxiety, for example. Then they will ask you to go for antidepressant first. So after antidepressant, if the situation doesn't get well, then let's change the medicine until they are really convinced that you are neurodivergent. So that may be the possibility. I'm not saying that it is definitely like this, but that may be the possibility. And one thing that we also observe, I don't want to say it is definitely like this, but we observe, one thing that we observe is there is a difference between gender when it comes to the diagnosis of neurodivergence. If it is male, you will get the diagnosis pretty fast. But if it is female, normally they will just diagnose you as anxiety, right? Normally it's anxiety. Or else if you have the suicidal thoughts, then they will diagnose you as depression. So no matter how female, usually they will push antidepressant to you. That is what we observe. I'm not saying that it is definitely like this, but that is what we observe, right? So in the end, when you waited for years, it may not be the result that you wish to have more knowledge, right? And then if you go for private clinic, private psychiatrist service, then of course the money, right? The money involve consultation fee. Consultation fee can be like RM100, few hundreds, right? It's just for consultation only, right? And then assessment fee. If let's say you want yourself to be assessed, right, whether it is autism, ADHD, or some other things, right, assessment fee is like, I think it's about thousands. I think it's few thousands if I'm not mistaken. But it depends on what kind of assessment. If you want to do the full one, it can be more expensive. But if you would like to just go for a specific one, maybe some of them are within hundreds. Then not forgetting that sometimes you may need the advice from occupational therapists. So if you go for OT, right, occupational therapy, that is another cost. So when you go for private, is definitely burning your money. So the second consideration is about money, right? And then the third consideration is more serious issue, where we talk about the impact on occupation, because we have to consider how our employer view our diagnosis, right, or view our neurodivergence condition. Will this actually affect our promotion, right? Will this actually cause us to have lesser job opportunity? All this we have to consider. And if you have decided to disclose this to your employer, actually you are deemed ready to take the risk of having such lesser opportunity. If your employer doesn't have this kind of perception, then you are quite lucky, I would say, that they really practice inclusion and diversity. They really accept people with different strength, I would say, different ability. But most of the time, because I wouldn't say it's whose fault, but because our knowledge level may be lesser, right? We don't really know, or most of the employers do not really know what does it mean by neurodivergence, or how it will affect a person, or how it will affect a job performance. So they may not know. And what they actually understand may be the more serious situation, where the serious cases of neurodivergence are usually the one that affect the job performance. So they may perceive you as a poor performer. So in such a case, they may actually not giving you some opportunity, for example, to be involved in a certain project. So that is something that you have to consider. Some employers, they may be afraid of you seeking accommodation, because if you have a formal diagnosis, then there's a chance that you actually try to seek for accommodation, because in terms of regulations, actually the formally diagnosed neurodivergence individuals, they are protected they are protected in regulation. So if let's say there's a country which really emphasize on inclusion, then the accommodation must be given. So sometimes employer may be afraid of this as well. Like for example, the example of accommodation can be like flexi working hour. So it's like if I'm not if I do not need to be in office, then please allow me not to be in office. So that is a thing that employer are, I would say they are quite afraid, because they may not know how to explain to other employees, right? So that is something. And so because of that, they may have a very narrow or a very unfriendly perception on you if you have a formal diagnosis. And then also about if you want to change a job, like in future, if you would like to change your job, then how would the diagnosis actually affect you in terms of getting the job? And if you do not want to disclose, whether you want to disclose is something that you also need to consider. But if you do not want to disclose, then your employer may think you are the same as other people. So they may place some expectation on you, which you may find it difficult to achieve. And at the point of time, if you would like to disclose, then you may be accused, like, why didn't you disclose it at the very beginning? So that is something that is very complicated, I would say. The complication is there. So whether we want to get a diagnosis and whether we want to disclose, we have to really consider thoroughly, right? Then the last consideration I would like to say is about impact on your well-being. How the diagnosis actually impact your well-being, this is also something that it is worthwhile for you to consider. Now, of course, I would say that I'm quite lucky. If let's say I am talking about my own experience, I'm quite lucky because my workplace is rather supportive. And then we originally already have a flexible work schedule. So we are kind of like nothing changed actually after my formal diagnosis. But the fourth consideration just now I mentioned is the one that really pushed me for the diagnosis, because I think it is a new identity for me. After I get the formal diagnosis, right, I feel like I am reborn. So it's like I live again. I have a new identity. I use the new identity to look at my world, and it is totally different thing. The way you look at yourself, the way you actually accept yourself, the way you interact with yourself is a totally different experience, where I would say the well-being is greatly increased in my case, right? So you might want to consider this identity. How does it help you in recognizing yourself, in advocating yourself, in explaining yourself to other people? Because sometimes when you tell other people without diagnosis, they may not believe, right? I'm not saying only employer, or not only colleague, but maybe relative, maybe your own parents. Because if you are late diagnosed adults, then your parents might be in shock. Why didn't we notice when you were small? Are you saying that we are weak in our parenting or whatsoever? They may have this kind of perception. So how do you actually explain yourself to other people, and whether the diagnosis help you in this situation? This is something that you can actually consider about it. And then of course to kind of like relate to your well-being after you get diagnosis, of course the next step is sometimes people will go for accommodation. Like for example, they may apply a card, or a disabled card or disability card, where they can actually enjoy some accommodation using the card. There's no right or wrong for that. I would say if the accommodation increase or enhance your well-being, I guess it is not a harm to go for it. But again, having the disability card, you may want to consider how it affect your employment, how it affect your job, how it affect how your employer look at you. So that is something that we need to consider as well. And overall, as a conclusion, there is no right or wrong whether you go for diagnosis or not. Those without diagnosis, usually we'll call them late identify adults, right? Late identify adults. We also have books guiding all the late identify adults how to go through their neurodivergence life. So it doesn't mean that when you never get a formal diagnosis, you are not valid. It doesn't mean like this, right? It also doesn't mean your identity is not valid. But towards a certain extent, sometimes especially when we want to advocate, right? When we want to actually speak on behalf of us or on behalf of this neurodivergence condition, formal diagnosis may be something that people look for, just like people look for qualification for someone who want to speak about a certain topic, right? So all these things, all these points are the points that you may consider, and how do you want to move on your life after you actually get diagnosis. These are something that you have to consider. As for myself, I get a formal diagnosis. I actually also apply for a card. And how does it affect me? I would say that I really accept myself after I get the card. I would say like this. After I get the formal diagnosis, I still took some time to actually accept the fact that, I am really a disabled person. Because all the while, if let's say, as what I mentioned in previous videos, when you ask other people their perception on me, I'm always a high performer. So it is very difficult for people to believe that I'm actually disabled. So when I got the formal diagnosis, I actually also took some time to relook at my life and to convince myself that, I think I am, one of it. But still, it's not that much until I get the identity card. I get the disability card. When I get the disability card, where in Malaysia we call this OKU card, that is the moment that I really feel like, I am an autistic, individual, and I seek accommodation. To be honest, I seek accommodation for my well-being, because I've been through my life without the diagnosis, and I know how hard it is. And when I look at all my experience, I would say that it should be very grateful. It should have been grateful to have all this accommodation during my life, right? During the time I wasn't being diagnosed. If I were to get the accommodation, it will really make my life, better, and it will really increase the well-being and the quality of my life. So that is the reason I also advocate myself and do all these videos to help you to analyze, what you need to do, and should you actually go for it, and then whether your experience is valid. I hope that someone is the same as you, even though we are not 100% the same, but you are not alone, right? So whether to get diagnosis or not, if you do not have an answer now, I would say it's okay. You just take your time to think about it. One day, you will get the idea whether you want to go for it, right? So I wish you all the best, and stay happy.